On the heels of Resident Evil 4, it appears Capcom doubled down on the action and, over time, lost sight of the horror. Down to the critics and fans panning Resident Evil 6 for overemphasizing action sequences with minimal scares. A game that boiled down to a generic third-person action shooter and wasn't even particularly good at that. The follow-up was a make-or-break moment in the long-standing franchise. With Resident Evil 7, they delivered and then some. Taking influence from modern horror hits focused on paranormal thrills, Resident Evil 7 traded in over-the-shoulder cameras for a first-person perspective. This tunneled perspective mixed with low lighting and claustrophobic corridors added a natural tension to quiet moments. When the piece was suddenly broken, it was often done in a surreal way that tore away at your mind. It's a degree of psychological horror the franchise had never reached before, an achievement that breathed new life into the series for veterans to enjoy and newcomers to latch onto. Many of these surreal peaks within the ominous lulls are capitalized by, you guessed it, the bosses. Before moving on to the new kid on the block with Resident Evil Village, I'll be digging into each encounter its acclaimed predecessor has to offer. Without further ado, here are the Resident Evil 7 bosses ranked from worst to best. Number 9, Eveline. In an homage to the good old flesh wall from Resident Evil 2, little Evie turns into an amalgamation of virus bursting at the cellular seams until she breaks her four-wall shackles into a giant zombipede. The visual flavor may be sizzling, but the mechanics are sorely lacking. Face wallpaper has no offense to speak of. Just shoot it wildly until the phase ends. From there, for all the spectacle, the ending is just a block and shoot fest with your actions feeling inconsequential. You go through simple, dull motions with the expectation that the finality of the fight carries enough weight to overlook the shallow mechanics. You even get tossed a new piece named for a certain fabled antagonist to cap off the final blow. Plenty of style, but hardly any substance to speak of lands this interactive cutscene at the bottom of the list. Number 8, Garage Jack. This one is a similar cinematic doozy with a little more involvement on your end and a puzzling wild goose chase. After a skull-splitting opener, you're left with mere moments to compose yourself as you're next on the menu. Like many fights to come, you're given a central piece to put spacing between you and the boss, in this case a car. Turns out that vehicle is your key to victory. The intention is to find the keys, bait Jack far away enough for you to safely get in, then ram him a few times to push into the final phase. This is the cinematic bit where Jack takes you for a ride, one that ends poorly for him on the surface. The intentionally dramatized nature of the sequence is to hammer in how sturdy Jack is, and just how royally boned you are to be on his bad side. His final flaming march ended by a few bullets is a mere formality. While this battle offers a delightful B-movie slasher feel, it clashes harshly with the puzzle nature. Figuring out what to do under pressure in a game that's still in its opening hours can lead to momentary panic and confusion. Repeated do-overs of this sequence take away from the intended effect. Instead of framing how unstoppable Jack is, it's a friendly reminder you're playing a video game and have as many attempts as you like. With all of this said, my own experience was even further from the intention. I quickly gathered you needed to get in the car, but wasn't smart enough to realize you needed to bait him away. When he tossed me from the driver's seat and cinematically called dibs, I falsely assumed this was the intended progression of the fight. Frankly, anyone who can cut donuts on a dime like this deserves to be behind the wheel. Laughing at how ludicrous and unrealistic his driving is was another moment of shattered immersion. The focus is meant to be on him and his imposing physical prowess, not some fantastical imagination of how a car could handle donuts in a shoebox-sized garage. Really, it seemed intended to guarantee the player gets run down no matter how effectively they juke, which led to even more confusion and inevitable frustration on my end since I assumed this was the intended path to victory. Can you blame me considering he wiped out himself on my 4th attempt after his 15th donut ended in a fiery wipeout? His defeat didn't feel earned, it felt like dumb luck. I missed the spectacle the fight was supposed to offer for some comical speed racer shenanigans. Even if I did get the cinematic sequence, it ends up being more cutscene than battle, similar to Evie. The essence of a good slasher chase is here, but the execution is lacking on multiple levels. While I'm fairly certain it's a fan favorite, my experience and developmental gripes land it just outside the bottom. Number 7, Mama Molded. A contrary sequence to Jack's zany garage, this bloated behemoth is a trial in how trap stalker intensity can be appropriately matched with action from the player. A part of Chris Redfield's more action-centric DLC, Mama Molded makes an appearance early as a high-threat, unkillable monster. It isn't until you're on the clock, winding down until your explosive demise, that Mama stands between you and the liquid nitrogen to burn the bomb off. Thanks to some special slug rounds, you can nullify its invulnerability, which sadly turns it into an otherwise basic encounter. The bobbling behemoth bumbles its way around the Rosie as you space along the dump truck. Similar to its smaller reskin counterparts, it'll vomit and whack you if you stay too close. Its only unique mechanic is spawning tiny spiders that are easily blown away with a few blasts from the shotgun or a well-placed grenade. While its moves are basic, I commend the setup of facing you against a seemingly invincible foe as you race to save yourself from going kaboom. The fight itself isn't too memorable, as fighting back here is a trial and taking dozens of pot shots at an easy target, but its addition to the growing tension as the clock ticks towards 0 is noteworthy. Number 6, Mia. A beneficiary of the entire intro's build-up, Ethan's reward for coming to the bumfuck bayou to search for his missing wife is getting his arm sawed off en route to an attic brawl with her. The moments leading up to this are shaped by the tonal shift from previous Resident Evils. A small field of view in first person, a creepy house dimly lit by only your flashlight, and a distinct feeling upon finding your wife locked away that she isn't acting quite right. If you had that inkling, you should trust your gut, since she'd rather spew yours on the floor than let you escape. A few scary encounters lead to the ultimate showdown in the attic, where you have limited space to awkwardly juke in first person and land pistol shots to keep her at bay. That's all there is to defeating her. Shoot her enough to end it. Though it is simple, it's appropriate for the first encounter in the game. You quickly learn valuable lessons such as holding fire to headshot stun at key moments when she goes berserk, reloading at times when you have proper space for the animation, and quickly learning the layout and making full use of it via sprint to help create room not only for reloading, but for you to get ample damage in safely. It's a fantastic introductory sequence, but Mia as a boss herself can't be that mechanically deep when you've hardly been introduced to the game. If nothing else, it's an excellent conclusion to a heart-pumping introduction. Number 5, Mutated Margaret. What starts as an innocent game of fire in the hole quickly turned into hide and seek with Swamp Gumby. Bosses like Mia and Garage Jack put you on the ropes as you frantically try to play keep away. Margaret is a lesson in the hunted becoming the hunter. Sure, you can let yourself become the victim to her surprise assaults, but you can even use these moments to blast her and turn her opportunity into your gain by stunning her. This is true both for the ambushes and a quick reaction to her climbing on the ceilings and walls you can knock her from for a nice punish. The key is that you're both trying to kill each other. You with the many tools you've collected, including a flamethrower and grenade launcher, her with her gangly arms and nest diaper. Her attacks are too frantic to reliably dodge, which further emphasizes how you benefit from going on the offensive to hit her first and stun her, giving ample opportunity to fill her diaper full of lead. Probably the only thing I wasn't a fan of was her ability to place nests around the arena, creating more bugs to hassle you. They're annoying to deal with outside of a boss battle, let alone in one. Overall though, it's a great exercise in Predator vs. Predator, a chance you've not often been afforded until the top 5. Number 4, Mutated Lucas. With shades of G3 from Resident Evil 2 Remake, Mutated Lucas is a warrior-style hunk of monster that hops and barrels his way towards you to do damage. Outside of that, not a whole lot. But he takes a hefty amount of punishment, making this a battle of attrition. I enjoyed the laboratory setting that is ever so common in Resident Evil endgames. I liked the diversion of toxins forcing you to the side of the room to fill your oxygen tank in the second phase. I appreciated his weak points being clear, and per usual being guarded by another weak point. He moved around enough to make it engaging, especially with the center barricade being a folly to his chases mitigated by his ability to jump atop. Basic notes like clear weak points, diversion mechanics, and well-defined attack styles make this feel much more traditional as a boss. The only knock is how overloaded I was with ammo as Chris, making it a bit too easy to unload and stun him to death. Even so, it was still an enjoyable send-off to this action-packed DLC. Number 3, Chainsaw Jack. In contrast to Mia and Garage Jack, who come at a time where you have almost no combat experience, Chainsaw Jack is the final paragraph to a chapter full of zombies to practice your FPF jukes and weapon mastery. This makes your rematch with Jack feel perfectly timed. The game even gives you some assistance with body bags to kick and stun him. It makes it much easier to get a breather from his immense swiggity-swooty pursuits. Beyond better balance in your own skill set and defensive opportunities, the mechanics are much more clearly defined. Blast away until his weak spot is exposed, do enough damage, then he'll grab chainsaws and you get to prepare for quite the unique duel. Timing your swings against his, baiting him to misfire for a punish, and making use of the longer thrust during big openings is an amazing rush. The chainsaw is pleasantly comfortable to wield for a new weapon. It's not all gain, however, as Jack grows more frantic and slowly cuts down the stun bags to up the ante. Resident Evil 7 relied heavily in the early hours on the "you are helpless" vibe that a lot of modern horror goes for. Resident Evil 4 rarely made me chew through resources as fast as Resident Evil 7 did, and sure gave them in more generous quantities. That said, RE7 gives you just enough to always be on edge, ensuring you make the most of each and every bullet to survive. Even if that goes a long way in creating a delightfully oppressive atmosphere, coming up for air every now and again is essential. What better cathartic release is there than the free resource of swinging saws with a shirtless hillbilly? Number 2, Swamp Jack. The main thread of a DLC resolving Zoe's fate, you play as her kick-ass Uncle Joe. Seriously, this dude's primary weapon is his bare hands. You might think him foolish for taking on the E-Series apocalypse with meager punches, but clearly you haven't seen G.I. Joe in action. All of his boxing prowess culminates in 3 rounds with a swamp monster, later revealed to be another mutation of Jack. Mechanically, there isn't a whole lot to dig into. He has a variety of combos, but they're all dealt with in the same way. Block and look for openings. How diligent you were in collecting the strongman effigies that buff your punching power will determine how long before the bell tolls for a finisher, which consists of powerbombing this giant WWE style. I can't think of a single moment that better defines the absurdity of this entire campaign. There is at least some strategy involved. To maximize your openings, you'll need to make use of his 2 combos, the fast jab with a starting left and then a whole lot of right shoved down his throat, or a slower wound up combo that offers a powerful uppercut for its costly startup. While there isn't a ton of nuance, beating on each other is hilariously fun in all the right ways. This over-the-top brawl is only doubled down upon in the final duel, with Jack gaining ranged tentacles to offset your hyper-fisting power glove. One Punch Man is a pretty fun gig despite a certain hero's disdain for fun. Personally, I had a blast hyper-fisting everything in my path on my way to Jack. The charge power of the gauntlet adds a layer of timing to the second fight, though it simplifies things from another perspective since you don't use combos and instead look for windows to pre-charge fully and release. There's a surprising amount of strategy involved for something as simple on the surface as punch, block, punch. Ultimately, it's pure adrenaline and fun with excellent balance in its novel design. What more could you ask for? Well, call me old-fashioned, but I suppose I'd order 1 serving of a classic Resident Evil boss to cap our #1 spot, and boy does the game deliver with Mutated Jack. A big mass of mutated viral flesh with orange bulbous eyes begging to be blown to bits. His stature is matched with an incredible arena design across 2 floors. What makes it so great is how gaps between the floors and rapid understanding of Jack's predictable movements provides openings you need to blast away his 8 eyes. If you recall my complaints of Saddler in 4, Jack remedies his mistakes by gradually becoming more difficult to keep at bay as his weak spots dwindle. It creates an upward slope of difficulty until the fight's conclusion that is perfectly paced. At the start, it's easy peasy, but as you go on, you'll have to be more agile, precise, and strategic to pluck the final few peepers. His attacks are appropriately well telegraphed and offer fair opportunity for evasion at his size. His movements are the right level of readable for how quickly you learn to bait him into positions you want, and the finale is the right amount of cinematic to match the incredible gameplay he offers. He's the spirit of classic Resident Evil bosses remade for a new era, easily my choice for the best boss in this new age masterpiece. But of course, that's just my opinion. What did you think of Resident Evil 7 and its bosses? Frankly, I've been on a roll of mega hits going straight from 4 to 7, so here's hoping Village delivers at a similar caliber. Be sure to subscribe to stay tuned for the incoming Village boss ranking and other projects I've got in the works. Until then, I want to thank you for watching today, much love to you, and I'll see you in the next video.